Happy Wealth Wednesday, Jackie. I'm so glad to have you here and to chat. You've been a close friend, but also have been on an incredible journey with your real estate projects, launching incredible ventures, and a really exciting career in LATAM. So I am so grateful to have you here. Would love if you would just kick us off with a bit of an introduction about who you are, where you're from, and what you're up to.
Yeah, so Jackie Hyland, currently based in Los Angeles, Joshua Tree, and New Mexico, which is a nod towards the real estate projects. They keep me pretty busy, but also working at a venture studio called Ideas 42 Ventures, and I've been doing that for the last 2 years, building impact B2B software businesses. And previous to that was kind of more on the operating side in tech after about a 7-8 year career in investing and banking. I wanted to get my hands dirty, did an operating roles, and then now at the venture studio in the venture studio space. So that's a little bit about me.
Do you remember what your first ever financial investment was, and how you even heard about the fact that you can invest your money and make money for you?
It's a good question. I mean, I think so. Before that, I was doing more microfinance, which sort of exposed me to financial markets, at least at a micro level, and then just got really interested in entrepreneurship. My parents didn't ever invest in the stock market. My dad is very risk averse, but I actually remember when I was 13, my friend, one of my best friends in high school, he was telling me about his stock portfolio, like freshman year in high school. He said that for Christmas or something, his dad had gotten him more Disney stock and Coca-Cola stock or whatever. And I had no idea really what that meant. And so, that was kind of my actual real first exposure to hearing, someone my age, we're like young teenagers, but he was telling me that his dad was, building this fun portfolio for him of brands that I knew, right? Like that as a kid, those types of things. And that's what he was trying to teach him is like, you already use these brands, we go to these places, let's invest. And so that's the first time I kind of got started to think about it. But it really wasn't until, yeah, I would say probably in my first job, I definitely understood and was doing a 401k and was trying to set up some savings, and I paid off my student loans like super fast. And then was just trying to figure out how to save enough money to then eventually start doing some stock portfolio stuff. But I was still pretty minimal. I didn't start doing real stock portfolio construction and probably till like my early 30s. I ended up actually more like investing in friends' projects and more high risk things, but that just felt more fun in my 20s and felt like it was the time to do that if I could. I don't know if I, you know, necessarily maybe could have done both at the time, but I was way more interested in the angel investment, seed stage investment technology phase for sure.
And so, how and why did you get into this space of angel investing? And then, kind of, second question, also your real estate portfolio, which has become a really big priority for you as well.
Yeah, so when I was working at Axion, which is an early stage fintech fund, and I felt really fortunate to be managing a portfolio of about 8 companies and then deploying, investing in 6 new companies during my time there. And it was interesting. I always felt like I really wanted obviously to do the best work I could, find the best companies for the fund and really prove myself as like an investment professional. And I feel like that actually worked out really well, but I didn't know the feeling of your own money, right? What would be, so if I could really bet on something. I was super interested in fintech, but at the same time I was like, okay, if I really invested in something that I cared in, what would it feel like? And so when I was working at Silicon Valley Bank, got exposed to a lot of different more industries and beyond fintech and different types of companies, and sort of just got really interested in trying to put my investor hat to work and say okay, what do I want the future to look like? There weren't that many, I didn't know many other women investing at the time. And so I was using it also as a way to connect with other women and find those communities. And yeah, made mistakes, lost money, made, the classic mistakes that, you think you're smart enough to remember, but I invested in things that I thought were interesting, but really knew nothing about. And those didn't work out. I mean, I learned a lot, but then did a lot better in some of the other more B2B fintech, what I actually was spending a lot of time thinking about. But it's fun, right? It's all learning. I think I remember, I think it was Tim Ferriss a long time ago said, instead, for me, it's like thinking of doing an MBA. If I could spend $200,000 on investing in myself for a college degree, but what else could I do with $200,000? And I think building, an early stage angel and portfolio just created so much learning and connection and friendships and community for me that yeah, I thought about doing my MBA for so many years and then just kind of felt like I'm just more of a doer. I'm more of a learn by doer and learn by losing, learn by winning, and all the in between. And then real estate kind of came a little bit later. I had been wanting to buy a home. I was thinking about the different ways to do that. Because I'm more of a digital nomad, I was thought, oh, it could be exciting to have a couple places and that I love to go to, but then rent them out when I'm not there. And then during the pandemic, being stuck in the city, I just thought, okay, where do I want to go? Where would I like to spend some time? And so I started spending some time out in Joshua Tree. And then also spending some time near Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so just being exposed to those two places that are beautiful in their own ways. I just started thinking, dreaming about having a portfolio of like 6 to 7 properties that are, these kind of lovely places that lots of people like to go, but that I also want to spend time in. I didn't really do the analysis of like which market is the hottest rental market, long-term, short-term. I really was just following kind of my desires of like what are good markets that are, that are a little bit more affordable than large cities, but that are in some ways destinations and have, a specialness about them. So that's how I kind of got started there and started Airbnb out in Joshua Tree and now in New Mexico. I just got my first review the other day, so that's very exciting. There is so much great real estate investing you can do that is like fractional ownership. There's great platforms if you don't really care, but I really enjoy talking to people and I really enjoy learning the process of the rental business and then also just owning assets, appreciating assets that hopefully will be really valuable for me and my family in the future.
I'd love to know in your mind, like what role you play in the wealth space and why you think it's important.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think in the wealth space specifically, so our ventures in theory are under an umbrella, impact B2B SaaS, but also under the kind of umbrella of bringing financial prosperity, especially to lower income individuals. So our entrepreneurs, we have 8 right now. We had 3 in the first cohort. Now we have 5 in our second. Really think about how are we going to meaningfully financially influence the financial lives of low and middle income people in the United States. I think you might have heard this stat, but I think something like 40% of Americans wouldn't be able to find $400 for an emergency, even if they had it. And so there's just a huge gap for financial support. And I think that's one area where we come in. One of our companies, Well Money, is actually working on just direct assistance, emergency aid, like without the sob story that you have to put on GoFundMe, and just supporting individuals through different moments in their life. And getting people through emergencies. Emergencies oftentimes is what puts people in debt. And so if we can prevent individuals from going into significant debt over things that just like happen in life that you don't expect, I think that really helps individuals either get on a wealth path or at least stay from these cycles and cycles of never ever being going to be able to be on that. Similarly, I think it's interesting because a lot of the entrepreneurs that we're trying to recruit and what we focus on are folks who, what we call sort of undiscovered talent, right? They come from backgrounds where they just don't have friends and family to rely on for their first investment, or they can't work from their dad's garage, or if it didn't work out, like fall back on friends and other friends and family. And so I think there's this really interesting opportunity to we focus on BIPOC and other folks of color who want to participate and build a company. And for us, like this is their first step into building a company that can create generational wealth for their families to come. We hope that it obviously helps the studio and helps keep us sustainable. But we really believe that these individuals are so magnificent. They just really didn't have that sort of generational support that oftentimes other groups of people have. And so by tapping into that, we're tapping into a new pool of talent that's going to build, wealth for themselves and hopefully wealth for middle income Americans.
What do you think has been the most exciting thing you've learned for yourself that you would want others to know?
It came very clear through the real estate when I kicked off the real estate business and Airbnb is just who you work with, and partnership is so important, and partnership with the right people. And the right people, not meaning, bad or good, but just the right, knowing what you need from a partnership. And especially when you're building something and taking risk and putting your money into both a business or a real estate project, if you can, I took a risk and started building this with my friend, Virginia. She's been a friend for a long time. And I just knew that whether we would learn together with the highs and the lows, like I would just love to spend time with her. And I think the more and more for a long time in my career, I was like just chasing the opportunity and like wanting to just grow my career and achieve and get the next like role, VP, director, whatever, CEO. And as I kind of went through the motions, I just realized like being a CEO is kind of like, or a director or whatever you want, right? Like having these positions is a little bit empty if you don't love the people that you're building with. And so for me, the who and deep and true and long-term partnership, I think is just so valuable. And, you can get through the highs and lows, you can pivot, you can almost like, I almost kind of feel like I could do anything with the right people. So that's just become my more recent lesson, I think, in the last 2 years through the pandemic and through starting these projects.
What has worked for you? What frameworks for finding and evaluating like those potential people?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it really is a lot about like understanding of what you need and being able to communicate that as well. So there's certain things that I'm really good at that I would love to find a complementary partner or partners. And I think what's really worked well for me is I'm drawn to other big thinkers. And I think that we could imagine a whole relationship and world together. But I think the nice thing is I think what's worked is like we take a step back and say, what can we do that's something small? So I'll share an example. During the pandemic, I did a project with two girlfriends. We were like thinking of this big project together, like, oh, let's do this and build this new world. And we said, well, let's just start with this small one. Let's do this 6-week project, see how we work together, and then go from there. And it was really, really insightful because we learned a lot about our dynamic as even 3 women. And like, we ended up not doing the bigger picture thing, but we had a successful one project. And we were kind of both like, we were all like, that was fun, but maybe it doesn't actually align with what we all really, really want. And so just starting small, trying like not being afraid to just test it out, iterate, try something new. I'm working on another project with a girlfriend, and it's just like a 2-month project, and we're evaluating what that feels like afterwards. And it's kind of like a fun side thing, but yeah, like not being afraid to want to just test it out, I think is really, really smart, and being really clear about what you're trying to figure out. So
it's really good advice. And is there a person or a company right now that's inspiring you in the space that you want to share, and why?
A woman and a friend of mine who's always been inspiring, but particularly inspiring is my friend Emily Joffrion. She is a dear friend of mine who I met just a couple of years ago, but we have become super close. And the thing that I love about her is she runs her own business. She's a consultant. She was at Airbnb. And she's also done real estate investments for herself and thought about diversifying and having conversations with other women. And I think that's the thing I love is Emily is like so specific. I think sometimes when we talk about finances or personal finance, it's like, and especially if you maybe feel like you make a lot of money or maybe you don't make a lot of money. So it's like shame on both sides. She's very encouraging. She does specific numbers. She like talks about her portfolio. She talks about like her tech experience, like with her close friends, and then also gathers women to dig in deeper. And I just appreciate that so much because we could be so vague and we could be so still like off-putting, but it's so empowering when you have a true friend who's just like, here's how I do it, like no secrets, open book. And I remember when I was doing my consulting business, I had some monthly goals of what I wanted to make. And I was just like, Emily, how much, what do you think? And she was like, you need to make 3 times more than that. And I just decided like every proposal I'd send out, I would 3x out of just like testing it out, and no one pushed back. Right. And so it's like friends like that just say, you deserve this. You have so much value. This is what I've seen that's been working for me. And I know the value that I have. It's like, it's a continued regenerative process where like her success is my success. Like she's not afraid to share that. And then has just been so supportive on those types of things. So shout out to Emily.
How can we follow your journey and the studio and the different portfolio companies that are coming out of it?
We do post a lot on LinkedIn, Ideas 42 Ventures. If you want to find us, we also have a website where we do a newsletter about once a month. So feel free to put your email in there. All of our entrepreneurs are actually on the website, so you can find them. As Well Money, Handoff, and ProsperWorks are the three companies. And then we've got 5 new entrepreneurs who just started off with us. And for me as well, you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. A little less active on social media these days, but I'm definitely there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being an inspiration, for building these companies, building your own portfolio, and sharing today. We'll definitely be following along.
That's great. Thank you.